Therapist friend. We've all heard the term, but what exactly does it mean? How do you know if you are the therapist friend? How do you know if you're treating your friend like a therapist? What does it mean for your friendship, and how can you avoid it? Before we get too far into it, hello, my name is Nell, and I have things to say about disability, chronic illness, mental health, and current events. If that sounds like something that interests you, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Keep your notifications turned on, just in case I do an extra video when something strikes my interest. Let me know what you think of my videos in the comments section, and if you know of somebody who would benefit from or enjoy one of my videos or the whole channel, please feel free to share a link with them. Most of us want to be there for our friends. We want to be supportive. We want to be considerate. We want to be good listeners. This is good. This is healthy. But there is a point where it can become unbalanced and unhealthy, and you become the therapist friend. You're not only a friend who is there to have an equal conversation with your friends, to have a back and forth with your friends, to have a shared laying down of burdens. You're there to listen to your friend, to give them feedback and advice and wisdom, and heaven forbid if you need someone to talk to, because you're always on the clock. There's a reason why therapists get paid. It's because it's bloody hard work. It's something that should be done for a certain amount of time, with guaranteed breaks and appropriate compensation to balance out the mental and emotional exhaustion that is involved with helping someone sort out their internal baggage. Being a therapist also requires a lot of training, not only in how to recognize mental health issues and behavioral patterns, but in how to manage one's own responses to hearing all of these things from people without absorbing them, without being so deeply affected that you carry it into your own day. I once asked my own therapist how she handles hearing so much of this and not taking it out on her family, not taking it out on her children, and she said, "I don't take it home." She was trained to learn how to not take it home. It's also why it's a job, that it's done in an office through appointments so that a therapist can healthily compartmentalize what they're hearing. They can process it, they can debrief with themselves, and then move on to the next person. My therapist, and a lot of therapists, will have a session and then have a 10 to 15 minute break in between clients for that debrief session, so they're not carrying it from one person to another. Too often, people will treat a good friend like a therapist. They'll go to them with their problems. They'll go to them with their concerns and their ups and downs. They'll want this friend to help them unravel their mysteries, to solve their quandaries, and to give them advice on what to do next. In a lot of ways, it's like having a therapist who you know on a deeper level. Except it's even better. You don't have to wait for an appointment. You can message them anytime you want, even in the middle of the night, and they will most likely message right back. If they give you advice and you act on it, you don't need to wait a month to get help for the next step. You don't need to wait for that next appointment. You can ask them right away. You can give them a blow-by-blow of a stressful conversation as it's happening and ask them what to do. You can message them before, during, and after a first date for some extra reassurance. None of this 9 to 5 stuff. None of this, "Oh, it looks like our time's up. See you next time." None of these annoying boundaries. You get all the support you want from someone who's always there for you. Yeah, that picture isn't always completely rosy. This could work great for you. You've got an on-call therapist. But do you have a friend? Or maybe the bigger question is, do they have a friend? Those boundaries that are in place for professional therapists are there so they don't get burnt out. If you have a friend who you often go to for advice and you're not keeping up any boundaries, you're going for the late night messages, you're calling them whenever you want and need with the expectation that they will always answer and they will always have wise words and comforting little bits of wisdom, they will get burnt out. And if you're expecting them to be a therapist, chances are you're not the only one who's expecting that from them. I have often been the therapist friend. In multiple friendships over many years, I have had friends assume that A, I am a font of wisdom who can clear up any personal issue. B, I am available pretty much all of the time. And C, I don't have many or any emotional needs of my own, so you can feel completely comfortable sharing all of your concerns with me, hoping or even expecting me to figure them all out, and then say, anyway, how are you going? You're good, right? Sometimes I've responded with, no, I'm not. But instead of receiving the therapist friend's response of, tell me all about it, how can I help? I get a, damn, that sucks. Or suddenly they're busy, or the topic gets changed. I don't get any of those options when I'm responding to those queries because I'm meant to have the solutions. Wise old Nell always knows what to do, right? Which means wise old Nell would never need advice, would never need a listening ear, right? And at times, when someone has started to pour out their problems to me, and I have finally advocated for myself, and I have said, I don't have enough in my tank for this. I am drowning and I can't take anything more on. I've had friends not know what to say. Oh, but I needed to talk to you. Not, oh, I'm so sorry that you're drowning. I'm so sorry that you're going through so much. Hopefully we can talk later, or do you need to talk? But your drowning stopped me from using you as a life raft. And now I don't know what to do. Sometimes you're most noticeable after you've sunk to the bottom. I'm not a therapist. In fact, I see a therapist. I've been in constant therapy for the past 12 years because I have significant health issues, mental health issues that I cannot manage on my own. I'm no longer the therapist friend. I refuse to do that anymore because it was destroying me slowly. I had been the therapist friend since primary school. And in so many relationships over so many years, it was making me feel like my worth was in what I was able to provide to a friendship, in the great advice I could give, not in my worth being the lovable person I was, just in my own self. But, man, you give such great advice. You help me clear up all my issues. That's great. But I wasn't somebody who was there to be lifted up for myself. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't seen as the fun friend. I was the useful friend. I was kept in the cupboard conveniently there for when I was needed. But the fun stuff, that was for other friends. I was always trusted more than the other friends. I always knew more than the other friends. I was always that special friend. No one knows me like you do. Well, yeah, I go out and have fun with those friends, and I go out and hang out with those friends, but no one knows my secrets like you do. And I was always there for the serious and sad times, but I was often left behind in the times of laughter. Putting a stop to being the therapist friend requires action on both sides. If you are the therapist friend, you need to put down boundaries and stick to them. Boundaries are necessary in any kind of relationship. It's not a dirty word. Not just relationships with a therapist-friend dynamic. In any friendship, you have these boundaries. Are you the kind of friends who get changed in the same room when you're going to go swimming? Are you the friends who are okay with midnight phone calls, or do you know that you wait until the daytime? Are you the friends who know that calling on family holidays is off limits? Are you hugging friends? Are you hand-holding friends? These boundaries are there to make sure that your friendship runs smoothly. As a therapist friend, you need to lay down some boundaries, and it can be hard. Firstly, recognize that you are a therapist friend. Do you do most of the listening? Do you find that you don't get to share much of your own concerns in conversations because all the conversations about your friend and what's going on in their life and their worries? Do you feel responsible for your friend's decisions and subsequent happiness? And if they make a decision that goes wrong, do you then feel responsible because you guided them towards that? Do you feel like you have to put your emotional needs aside when they reach out to you? And then, if that's true, you're the therapist friend, and it's time to stop. Do what I showed you earlier. Answer those emotional dumps by saying you can't take it on right now, and take note of the response. Or but if that response is, oh, but I needed you right now, that's a warning sign. That's a warning sign that that person isn't looking at you as a friend, but is looking at you as a therapist, is looking at you as somebody who can meet their needs. They're not looking at this as an equal back and forth sharing of burdens. They reached out to you because they had needs that needed to be met. And as soon as you said that you had needs, they thought, well, that's not convenient for me. They didn't hear that and then a flag pop up and go, oh my goodness, my friend's in trouble. Please, friend, tell me. Tell me what is going on with you so that I can relieve your burdens too. Or show what you want to hear by saying, hey, I'm going through some stuff and I really want to talk through it. Do you feel up to talking through it with me? Then maybe that's something that they can learn. They can check to see if you're up to it before asking you about it. You might need to set some harder boundaries. If someone is really taking advantage of your kindness and compassion, you might need to make it clear that the dynamic is unhealthy and unbalanced. You might need to say, hey, I really love you and I want to be here for you, but I feel like our friendship is a little bit out of balance. I feel like you're coming to me expecting me to always be there to give you answers and to give you help, but I don't think I'm getting the same support. I really want us to work on this and bring us back into balance. And again, take note of the response. If there's denial, that's a sign. If there's acknowledgement, yes, we're out of balance, but then if there isn't change, that's a sign. A person with a therapist friend needs to recognize their behavior too. Do you have a particular friend that you always reach out to when you're feeling low? Do you feel sure that they'll always answer and give you good advice, no matter the time, no matter the place, no matter what they're going through? Do you start the conversation hoping or even knowing that your friend will give you solutions? Do you start those conversations by saying, something happened to me today, or my life is ruined, or I'm so upset, rather than asking your friend how they are? And do you think that your friend is always going okay? If someone says, how's so-and-so? You go, oh, I think they're fine. But you don't really know because you haven't asked. Then you need to pull back. Before you send that message, think about what your friend might be doing. In the middle of the night, are they sleeping? In the middle of the day, are they working? You are so used to them answering straight away, but consider what's going on in their life. Think about the amount of emotional weight and responsibility you're putting on them. Think about it in terms of scales. Relationships are give and take. When you load them up with emotional weight, do you eventually take it off? Or do you give them a chance to lay their emotional weight on you? Or do you keep placing things on their side of the scale to the point where it's completely out of balance? A friendship with a therapist friend dynamic is not healthy for either person. The therapist friend will burn out. They'll feel drained, they'll feel empty, they'll feel neglected or even resentful. The person using their friend as a therapist will not be getting the kind of help that they would get from an actual therapist because, again, their friend is not a licensed therapist in most cases, and they're developing unhealthy relationship habits that won't serve them well in future relationships. These friendships might continue for years, but they're not healthy for either person. And at some point, a therapist friend might crawl out from underneath that overloaded scale and realize they've had enough of being buried. Enough of being expected to drown, especially if attempts at boundaries have been made and haven't been respected. As a therapist friend, the best thing you can do is realize that it's better for you and your friend to lay down those boundaries, because it can save your friendship for the future and help your friend develop better relationships with others. As a person using a therapist friend, the best thing you can do is reconsider why you value them. Is it because of their innate value as a person? because of the love you have for them, or is it because they'll help you when you want them to without asking much in return? Continuing these patterns could see the therapist friend lose themselves and the user of a therapist friend lose their friendship. Try to put it right before it's too late. I have some resources in the description box for how to recognize this pattern and recommendations for how to set appropriate boundaries. If you find yourself in either of these situations, I'd really recommend checking them out. Thank you so much for listening and for learning with me. This is a huge topic and something that is incredibly close to my heart. I have had ups and downs with this over, could I say 20 years? I could say 20 years. 25 years. You're not alone in this, regardless of which side you're on. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bless.